name is Kwabena. I am a producer. I'm a DJ. I'm a songwriter, an artist, and I like to dabble in different mediums within art, whether it's visual art, whether it's sonic art, and then even outside of that, I'm also someone that really believes in using music as a vehicle for tangible change. So I'm very, very interested in also pro-social causes. So.
How was your visit to Lagos, Nigeria?
Man, Lagos has been great. Lagos has been great. I wish we were here a lot longer, actually, because I really would be able to get to experience the whole country and what the city has to offer. But so far, it's been great. It reminds me of home, you know.
When did you last visit Ghana?
I was in Ghana Christmas, actually. Yeah. So I went back for about a month. Just got to see family, got to meet up with old friends, different musicians. I'd actually studied abroad there in 2006, so it was good to just get to, reconnected. So it's been a while since I've been there. A lot's changed, and at the same time, a lot hasn't changed. Yeah.
When did you start producing?
You said when?
Yes.
I started producing, I would say, in high school, actually. The way I got into production, though, is I actually started with poetry, actually, believe it or not. Then poetry became spoken word became rap became, okay, we need some beats to rap over. So then I got into production. We started making music, started making songs, and then after that I got into DJing, actually, and playing the records. When I got to college, I started performing. So I joined a band, essentially, was a front man for the band. And so I've always been involved in art in various capacities, but I really decided to focus on production in college. Yeah.
What were your influences during your early production days, and what inspired you?
Man, my earliest, even before production, just music. In general, my father used to play, he was the musician in the house in the sense of he always had eclectic tastes and a wide range of tastes. He would have a lot of different CDs, he'd have a lot of different records in the house. So I grew up listening to Sade, I grew up listening to Bob Marley, I grew up listening to Fela. So all of this, and their music in particular, was music that not only was it great musically, but it moves the soul, and it spoke also socially too. You know what I mean? So I really love the message too. So I grew up always thinking that you could put both together. It wasn't opposite, that you had to have only music that makes you dance and then music that has a message. You can combine the two. So my philosophy on music has always been, one that I think that you can actually combine the two, and it came from the likes of those people that I knew. So.
How involved are you in the music making process with artists you work with?
Very involved, very involved. I think that one of the things that people often confuse with a producer and a beat maker is someone that just makes the music, right? Like, your only responsibility is to be able to make the beat, right? But a producer has to be able to not only make sure that the music gets done, but also navigate the process, And you're really responsible for making sure that whatever the artist's process is, whatever the personality that the artist has, knowing how to actually navigate that and do that in a way where it brings out the best in them, you know what I mean? So it's not just about making music. Sometimes for me even, I'm all about ambiance and vibe. So for me, the mood has to be right, the lighting has to be right, the smells have to be right, the food, the taste, everything, all of it has to be right, and it has to be inspired. Because what it does is it usually allows people to be just in their greatest space, and bring out the best in their artistry. Yeah.
What's the story behind the production of Classic Man and Yoga?
Classic Man. I would say that the production behind Classic Man isn't anything necessarily revolutionary. I think it was the sound of the times, but I think what was most important was what we did over it that actually made it what it was. So I think the thing that made it unique was actually the melodies that we put on top of it. It's funny, people would come up to us and be like, "Oh man, I really love those like African-inspired melodies," and we'd be like, we weren't even intending for the melodies to necessarily come out that way; it just kind of naturally came out. And one of the times I remember we were sitting with Akon. And Akon was telling us the story. He was like, "Yeah, man, I was out in Europe, and I keep having people coming up to me and being like, yo, I love your new record, Classic Man." And he'd be like, "That's not my record." But what it spoke to was that when people heard it, they felt the continent in it. They felt the diaspora in it. You know what I mean? So I think that was one of the things that made it unique. Outside of that, I also think that the archetype of the man, the classic man. When's the last time you heard a record about a classic man? You know, and you know, you have your different archetypes, particularly in hip hop. You know, you have your backpacker, you might have your conscious, you might have your street, you might have a blend of all of those, but you haven't necessarily had that archetype of what we call the classic man. So I think those were the things that actually made the song as a whole something that was very, very unique and different, and sounded like a breath of fresh air at the time. So, yeah.
And yoga?
Yoga was fun. Yoga was, so we spent a lot of time in Atlanta. We spent a lot of time with Janelle, and we actually did a retreat, and we spent like literally just like, we were all wearing like all white, walking around the house every day for like 2 weeks. We were cooking, we were sleeping on grass carpet, we were sleeping in teepees. It was like a retreat, essentially. And we were just having fun and just enjoying ourselves, and you know, all of Wondaland, all the different artists that were there, from Jidenna to Roman John Arthur, to Deep Cotton, to Saint Beauty, to Janelle. Like, we just all were vibing, essentially. And I think the great thing about that is that most people, when they go to make music, you know, it's, you know, a lot of people they're creating from only the intention of just making a record. I think for us, it was more about finding the synergy between all of our spirits and really getting to know each other and really, really understand each other and trust each other and just explore, you know, and do something different. So yoga was really a manifestation of that idea. But it just came from just enjoying ourselves. We were doing yoga every day. You know, we were opening our spirits, opening our minds, and just exploring and enjoying ourselves and being carefree and having fun. You know, so I think that for Janelle in particular, and she's like, man, I can't speak highly enough about Janelle, because she is just a remarkable person and spirit. She's extremely talented, obviously, as a musician, but even just as a person, you know, she's somebody that is really, really like, man, her spirit is just so strong. You know, she's hard not to love. You know what I mean? She's made herself very, very easy to love just by naturally being herself. So on that record, it was an opportunity for her to just really just be herself and enjoy. You know what I mean? And I think what came out of that was a moment where she got to, you know, kind of depart from what she normally does, you know, her normal space, and enjoy. And I think that people responded to it. You know what I mean? It was one of her biggest records to date, you know. So that really just came from a place of just being free. Yeah.
So what makes a man classic?
What makes a man classic? Classic, man, I think, you know, a lot of people thought that, or think that it's about, you know, they get into the fashion, they get into the suit, they get into the look of the classic man. But it goes far beyond that. You know what I mean? You don't have to wear a suit to be a classic man. You know, you don't have to look dapper to be a classic man. In fact, there are a lot of people that look dapper and aren't classic. You know what I mean? So for us, it's more about the character. Who's underneath the suit? Who's underneath the clothes? You know, and it's like, for us, we just thought about the men that inspired us. You know what I mean? Like, we have always had just people looking out for us since day one. You know what I mean? That were older. That, you know, their professions ranged. They could be anyone from a trash man to a hustler to up to a politician or a businessman. You know what I mean? So it was less about the profession and it was more about the kind of man. You know what I mean? A classic man to me is actually, honestly, it's synonymous to what a chief is. You know, and a chief is somebody that can really be able to understand the vision that their tribe has far beyond their years. They can see far, right? But it's not only vision too, it's also focus. Vision is the long term, being able to see the long term. Focus is being able to see the everyday. And a chief or a classic man has the ability to do both simultaneously. You know, so they have a very tremendous sense of responsibility to not only themselves, but to their family, to their tribe, to their country, and then to the earth. So to me, that's what you know, really embarks really exudes what a classic man is.
So you have writing credits too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're the executive producer of Jidenna's Kwabena. Can you tell us what to expect production-wise?
Production-wise, don't have any expectations. I think the thing for us is that we've always been one to explore. You know what I mean? Like, when we see too many people congregating over here, we're the type of people that say, okay, what's going on over there? You know what I mean? I remember seeing an interview with Mark Cuban, and he was talking about his success and why he's successful. He's like, when everybody is congregating around this idea, I'm like, well, what are they missing? What are they missing over here? And that's been the philosophy behind all of his success. It was like, when everyone goes that way, I'm going to look the other way and see what they're missing. So in terms of production, in terms of sonic landscape, in terms of feel, it's definitely an album that it's definitely different. It's different. But at the same time, it's also something that is relatable too. You know what I mean? So we definitely are pulling on a lot of different influences from hip-hop, but also to world music, to African music. I mean, there's records on there that sound like they were created in Istanbul, Turkey, some that sound like it's in Portugal, some that sound like it's in Lagos or Kumasi. You know, we're just really just pulling from all of our different influences from around the world and making a very, very cohesive album that is, yeah, that we're really, really excited about. But in terms of expectations, brace yourself. Brace yourself.
All right. How's working with Wondaland then?
Oh man, Wondaland. Wondaland is great. Wondaland is to me very, very inspiring because this is a collective of people that they're a tribe. You know, more than anything. It's like, these are people that we, like I said, we cook together, we eat together, we exercise together, do yoga, I mean everything. And we've been doing that they've been doing it for a long time within themselves. Fear and Fancy, we've also been doing it for a long time. It's a different thing when you're making music with people that you came in with. You know, the people that you were struggling with. The people that when no one believed in you, you know what I mean, you all saw it and shared the same vision and worked to get it until the world recognized it. You know, so it's something that's very, very near and dear. It's something that's very, very special. It's something that I always protect because it's rare. You know what I mean? And there's so many just brilliant minds, but even beyond that, just bright spirits that are part of Wondaland and Fear and Fancy that make it what it is. So it's always a great experience working with Wondaland.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell us about your funniest studio moment.
This is the hardest question. This is the hardest question because there's so many moments. I don't even know. I can't even think of a direct moment. More than that, I'll just say that I mean, honestly, every time we go to create music, it's an experience. You know what I mean? Because you never know what you're gonna get out of it. You know, and just in terms of our process and how we make music. I mean, it's just, like I said, it's always a quest for us to be free and enjoy. It's weird because I think as people that have, you know, I also study. I'm almost a scientist and an engineer when it comes to music too. I love the sense of sound, right? I love the theory of it. I love the really being able to understand why is it that this chord or this key right here allows you to feel a certain kind of emotion. So it's very, very easy to have a side of us that's very, very scientific, right? But what I realized also is that you just gotta be free. You gotta be free, and you gotta know how to just tap into your own spirit. And what that allows you to do is break rules and break boundaries and just enjoy. But when you menace too much over something and you're trying to, you know, fidget and make it right, and you treat music like it's a Rubik's Cube, then it becomes a Rubik's Cube. But if you just simply just treat it like it's just clay and you're just enjoying it, before you know it, you take your hands off it and you have a masterpiece because you're not thinking too hard about it. You know, so our goal always in our creation process is to just enjoy. You know, the spirits are running. You know, we might have some wine, or we might have some, you know, some whatever it is, whatever your vices of choice, and we're just being free and enjoying. So every moment is fun. Yeah.
What's a music making process?
I mean, I think but like I said, it's for us. It just comes from. Man, I mean, for me, I'll say, my thing is always about being able to channel the ancestors and the spirits. You know what I mean? It's like, that's the biggest thing. It's like, there's so much, every single day we all walk, you know, through our daily routine, right? And it becomes our mundane lives, right? Where everything becomes normal. You know, you wake up in the morning, you're used to doing this at this time. You're used to going here at this time. And for us, you know, I think that there's so much clutter in our everyday where for me, a big part of my day as a creative is making sure all of that clutter is clear in that room and removing all of those things that actually disconnect us from our spirit, from our purpose, from our ancestors. So for me, it's always about clearing that space. And when I clear that space and I'm in direct communication with God and my ancestors, then great art happens. You know what I mean? But when you're always creating and you have all these other things in the room, nah, it doesn't work like that. So always clearing out the space. So I bless the space. I start a studio session and I go around and I take incense and I'm blessing, or I take sage and I bless the space to just create space and make sure that we're walking into it with great intentions. You know what I mean? So, and it's real because I've had times where I didn't do that and you see some things, you know what I mean? You see some things. So point being that, I think the biggest thing for me as a producer in my creative process is to make sure that the space is clear and it's open and everything that we create is inspired by something outside of ourselves. Yeah.
You produced a few songs from John Legend's Love in the Future.
Yes.
What was your experience working with him?
John is another tremendous artist. He is an artist who obviously is very learned. He's very, very studied. We both have the same alma mater. So that's actually how we originally got connected. So we had a lot of mutual friends. I went to the same college. But John is somebody who I've always been inspired by and looked to because not only did he understand just great musicianship, and he has a certain reverence for his writing process. He has a certain reverence for melody. And so he's great as a musician, but he also is somebody that understands really his responsibility outside of music. So the thing that I was actually most inspired by with John is like what he would use his music to do. So even just the other day I was in New York and he had an event with the Red Campaign, Bono's organization. And it was a fundraising event, raising money for HIV/AIDS in Africa with Belvedere, right? And using his brand to be able to have impact on socio-cultural or pro-social causes outside of music. That to me is the thing that I really, really admire about John the most. Outside of that, he's a great guy. Love in the Future was a great process. It was really where I got to really experience not just making songs, but really making an album, essentially, and being able to see like all sides of that, essentially. So it was great. John was, obviously was very, very open to a lot of, my ideas. And I would say that that's really where I first got my major placement. So it was great. It was great. He kind of took a chance on me and opened up a lot of doors for me. So I'm always very, very appreciative to John. Yeah.
You seem to be involved because of non-profit organizations.
Yes.
Like Wondaland.
Yes.
Social clothes like Fair and Fancy.
Right.
What inspires you to reach out?
Specifically around All One Blood. It's an organization that I started because I'm very, very interested by default in sickle cell disease. So sickle cell disease is a disease that I suffer from. It's been very, very near and dear to my family. And it's been something that even when I was really going on my creative revolution in terms of being an artist, at the same time, I wasn't in school to become an artist. I was in school, I was actually pre-med. So I studied medicine my whole life, and it was because, I wanted to be involved in some capacity with sickle cell disease, and so obviously I took the path of, I'm no longer a doctor per se right now, but I look at music as the medicine, and looking at it as something where in my, creative endeavors with really navigating the industry and navigating music, being able to use it as a tool to still put back into sickle cell disease. So that sparked All One Blood. And basically what we do is our philosophy is really changing the conversation around sickle cell disease. I think that people have a lot of misconceptions about the disease itself. In America, in the States, they label it as a black disease. Which is marginally true. But when you open up the lens on a global perspective, you realize that there are people that are all shades and colors that have sickle cell disease that you never even knew, right? So sickle cell affected not just Africa itself, but it affected, I mean, places like India, places like South America, places like Greece, the Mediterranean. So there are people that are all different colors. I remember the very, very first time I met a white person, or someone that appeared to be white. And she got up, we was at a conference in DC, and she got up and she spoke about her children having sickle cell disease. And I was like, I had never, at that moment in my life, I had known that people that were non-black have sickle cell disease, but to see what appeared to be a white woman talking about her children having sickle cell disease, I was like, what? You're like, this is like a unicorn, right? Just like, I've never seen that before. And my point being that One Blood, our goal is to change the conversation around the disease and make people understand that it's not a disease of race, it's a disease of pain. Pain is one of the lowest common denominators of the human condition. And when I can talk to you from the perspective of pain as opposed to race, we'll be able to understand each other far beyond where our ethnicity is, what country we're from, and our race. Right, so us, that's one of our goals. We are working on a couple different things right now. We've gotten tremendous support from the likes of John, from the likes of Jidenna, Wondaland. We've done an event with Bilal, and we're looking to get in the fundraising space right now because there's a lot of tremendous work being done on actually creating a cure for sickle cell disease. And one of the things that I really want to do though is make sure that, because we're definitely going to see a cure in our lifetime, without a doubt. Guaranteed. But one of the things that's important to me is making sure that the cure doesn't just exist for the people that have the most direct access to it, but it also goes to the places that are most affected by it. Nigeria actually has the largest sickle cell disease population in the entire world. The entire world. How real is the cure if it doesn't reach Nigeria? You know? So for me, one of the things that's very, very important is making sure I facilitate that process and bringing it to the places that need it the most. So yeah.
What's Fair and Fancy?
Fair and Fancy is a collective of artists, of thinkers, engineers, writers, businessmen. I mean, there's no limit on the profession. It's really a mindset, and it's a mentality, and it's a philosophy, and it's an approach to life. I think that Fair and Fancy is one of our core values, is really looking at the world very differently, where we look at human intimacy as something that's been lost for our generation. You know what I mean? Think about it. Think about how often we're on our phones, tapping away, right? You go out to a social setting, and you're on your Instagram stories, or you're on your Snapchat, right? Or you're texting, or you're taking videos, or whatever it is, right? And we live in a culture where that's rewarded, because we want to vicariously live through other people's experience. So we like to view it. We like to be voyeurs. We like to see it, right? But what is that? How has that changed over time? Do you remember a time when your cell phone wasn't anything that you literally had? You always knew, okay, oh, I'm getting notifications. Right? I mean, literally 5 years ago, it wasn't like that. You know what I mean? And I think one of the things that is important to us is that we really, really foster a different kind of connection to, between human beings. You know what I mean? I mean, think about even the music that we create and how that affects us, right? Like even with certain music, a lot of trap, and I don't knock it because I love it, and there's a certain mood for it, right? But even the way you dance to it is all. Right? It's all that. Right? Exactly. He knows. Right? It's all that. But like, where did your hips move just now in that movement? Did your hips move? And that's why I love Africans. This is why I love Caribbeans. This is why I love the diaspora. It's because the way in which we move is much more expressive. Right? We're actually enjoying ourselves in a different kind of way. Our bodies are moving. Right? And if our bodies move, our spirits will move next. Our mind will move next. You see what I'm saying? So for us, it's being able to change the landscape of music and still, enjoy this and have these moments, but also get the people that know this to be able to move in a different kind of way and be open to a different kind of experience, a different kind of connection between humans. So that's one thing. I think another tenet of Fair and Fancy is also looking at the duality of life. It's oftentimes we look at, it's the black and the white, but we don't ever address the grays in the middle. You know what I mean? And I think Fear and Fancy, we like to walk the line. You know, we like to you know, there was a professor that was talking about African art in particular, right? And one of the things that he said that was interesting was, you know, in looking at, you know, certain kind of masks, right, and looking at the masquerades and looking at, you know, different African art, there's this notion of, at the same time, you can look at one piece, right, and you can look at that piece, and on one level you can get this feeling of like fear of the unknown. Right, this is an American professor talking about this. He's like, there's a fear of the unknown when I look at some of this art. And I'm like, I don't know what that is, but it's doing something to me where I'm a little bit like, ooh, what is that? But at the same time, there's a fancifulness when you look at it and you're like intrigued by it. And you're like, ooh, this is also like, there's something here where it's reaching me in a different kind of way. There's a beauty in it. Right? There's something in it that is hitting me in a different kind of way. So like to be able to have one thing that can inspire you to feel fear and fancy at the same time, that's the art that we create. That's the philosophy that we live by, hence Fear and Fancy.
So like, how do we be a part of that?
Say again.
How do we be a part of Fear and Fancy?
How do you be a part of it?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. I mean, you gotta, I mean, like I said, the philosophy is the biggest thing. You know, and that's the thing, is like there are members of Fear and Fancy across not only the states but also across the world, you know, that travel and have, you know, been people that have wanted to experience the world in different ways, that are out in Brazil and that are out in here in the continent. So it's not, to me, it's like I said, it's not a matter of profession, it's not a matter of location or anything like that. It's a matter of philosophy, that we share the same philosophy. And if we share the same philosophy, the world will bring us together. And we'll work on something like we're working on right now, hence why we're here.
Define swank.
Swank. Swank. Swank for us, in the most simplest of terms, is where hip hop meets funk. Right? When I was talking about even just the way in which we experience music, you look at the funk era, you look at the James Brown era. These are people that weren't doing this. They were dancing in a whole different kind of way. They were sweating, right? They might even have nice clothes on, right? They might even have these, you know, really great suits, but they were sweating. They were enjoying themselves in different ways. So for us, we come from a place where like we've always known that, you know. So swank for us is being able to like, obviously you might come sharp, because, you know, in terms of dressing sharp, for us, one of the things that it embodies is also being sharp, not only in your physical, but in your mind, in your body, and your spirit, right? So coming sharp is important, but also being able to enjoy and have fun and sweat is also just as important. So swank, I think, embodies both for our generation. And there are a lot of different artists that are already making swank right now. You know, I think that, I remember when I saw Kendrick, right, and he came out and, you know, he had his video where he was dancing for the first time in his video, right? And even after that, he continued to do that. That's swank. When I see Anderson .Paak, and I'm like, look at the music that he's making, look at how much fun he has on stage when he's not only performing it, but he's also jumping on the drums and playing the drums. That's swank. He's not afraid to get out there and sweat in a different kind of way. You know what I mean? So like for us, it's about that generation really being able to push the envelope and push the culture forward in that kind of way. That's swank. Yeah.
Do you intend on working with other Nigerian or Ghanaian artists in the future?
Definitely. I mean, I'm like I said, I'm always just by default, you know, highly inspired by the music that comes out of those countries in particular, the continent in general. As far as artists, I mean, last show where Burna Boy graced us with the stage, you know what I mean? And the thing I love about Burna in particular is that he's another artist that's not afraid to be a little bit left, to be a little different, to not try to be the same thing that everyone else is being, you know what I mean? He's free. That's the thing that I enjoy and I respect about him the most, you know, and I was telling him, I was like, man, you're not afraid to like go against the grain, you know what I mean? And so, I'm very inspired by artists like him. Obviously, Wiz has been a tremendous artist. I really love and respect what he's been able to do with the music, but even beyond that, like I said, he's another chief. When I hear him talk about Nigeria and I hear him talk about the continent, I look at him and I'm like, oh, okay. I see the chieftain in him because he has a responsibility and he talks and you can tell he sees beyond the music. when he's talking to me, he's talking about corruption, right? And he's talking about the way in which he wants to change the perception around the content. I'm like, oh, okay. You deserve all the success that you have because you can tell that he has a responsibility that goes far greater than him. You know what I mean? So he's, you know, obviously another inspiration. There are plenty of artists throughout Ghana as well that I've worked with and want to continue to work with. From Efia, who actually, you know, we did some of her first music when she came out. Actually, we actually collaborated on together. I was studying at Legon actually, so I had a chance to work with her very, very early. And it was great. I got to see her in Africa, actually in Barclays in Brooklyn recently. So she's another artist, from her to Stonebwoy, to Flo King Stone, to, you know, Chemi Kwame. I mean, there are just so many artists, you know what I mean? But yeah, I love, like I said, I'm highly, highly inspired by the continent. So definitely a lot of artists between Nigeria and Ghana that I'd love to continue to collaborate and work with. Yeah. That's it. So my name is Kwabena. You can find me online, all the different socials, Instagram, Twitter. It's all Kwabena. Yeah, I'm here with Talking Drum. Enjoy.